that we had. And it's hard. I mean, my daughter couldn't be here today. She's in a little bit under the weather. And when you grieve for lost loved one, like all of us have, but to outlive your kids and your grandkids, it's hard. And we're on an emotional roller coaster. We live day by day not knowing. But that day, or should I say, I relive it over and over and again. What could we have done? Why didn't they go in? It's something that it's constant. And I pray for my son-in-law, I pray for my daughter and my grandkids. Xavier had 3 brothers that survived him. But it's hard. So the only thing I want to say about Xavier is he loved to dance. He was my dancing partner. He was a prankster. And I can almost guarantee you every single one of you would have loved him just because he was so helpful. There was nothing that he wouldn't do is to make people comfortable. They can go to his house and first thing is like, he would make them feel at home. I'm lost for words because I'm lost without him. And the only thing I ask is keep his family in prayer. And I'm not too sure, but we will keep fighting because Xavier's no longer with us. Doesn't mean that we can't help him live on by having laws changed with the gun laws of people being old enough, which I don't know if anybody's old enough when they're not mentally stable, so a psych evaluation helps. A criminal background and an age limit is what we, the family, are really going for as far as trying to make a change and not let Xavier's death be in vain. Thank you, and thank you very much for supporting, and I know that a few of you that I've already talked to will keep his family in prayer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Manuel, so I'm Jacqueline's Casida's uncle and godfather. It's very difficult to talk about this because it brings back just the memories of her around her family. She had a big family, but it is something that every time that we go out there, whether it's here in Uvalde, Austin, or Washington, D.C., or in the news when we see a report come out, it is something that it's really hurtful. And I can understand how Abel, as a father, you know, he's with us, he wants to make some changes like his grandmother does, and it's just very hard to say a whole lot. I'll start back on May 24th, very difficult day for lots of families, especially the 21 families that were directly affected by this. And we shouldn't be here. None of these families should have ever gone through this. When you look back as to why something like this was allowed to happen, you try to figure out who is at fault, right? And a lot of people directly blame the shooter, right? Because he was the one that was able to and willing and did something of this magnitude that affected so many families. But when you go back and look at the details and read the details, sometimes by demanding accountability and transparency that we get these details, you find out that it could have been prevented. Very well could have been prevented. And so what does that do to us? Javier Cáceres, my brother-in-law, he was going to speak here today, but he just texted me that he couldn't. It makes you angry, and you turn that anger into action, right? I mean, because otherwise, as an uncle or as a parent, as a family member, it just drive me crazy. So you join organizations, you join an effort to prevent this from happening again. So a lot of people don't understand, especially in the community of Uvalde. Have you guys seen, we wear things like Uvalde Strong. Well, we often ask ourselves, where is Uvalde? Where is Uvalde Strong? And as some of you have seen in the news or newspapers or so on, there is a community, but it's a very divided community. And I believe, and now that we've seen, it's always really been there. It's just this tragedy kind of brought out the ugliness and sometimes the goodness in certain people. And it's very difficult for some of the families who live here to walk, their kids that they do have yet to school, go to Walmart, go to the different stores in town, go to restaurants in town without somebody looking at them like, you guys again. You guys are out there trying to make a change. And they want this to go away. And that's the difficulty, is that, and I told everybody, is that they don't have to do a darn thing. They don't have to do anything at all. But they're out there, whether it's here in Uvalde, whether it's in Austin, whether it's in Washington, D.C., they're doing this to prevent this from happening again. And if you look at the history of what things have happened here in the state of Texas, we've spoken to families from Santa Fe, Parkland, outside of the state, right? And they tell us, try not to let this go. Try not to let this get swept under the rug. Keep focused, keep fighting it. And that's just something that the families are going to continue to do. Again, they don't have to do this. We don't have to do this, but it's important to do this because we know what it feels like when you lose somebody. And families, are getting closer and closer together. And they're speaking out, even for the first time. We're hearing them. There's certain politicians, right, that mean well. They want to make good changes out there. And there's others that side with certain political parties that it shouldn't be a party thing. It should be more of a prevent tragedies and save lives. But they choose sides. They choose sides to where, even when we see it in the news or we see it in certain social media networks, it's like, how are they allowed to spread the hate rhetoric when they do so, things like this are going to continue happening again. So what we're going to do is, we're trying to unite to try to get the politicians that can listen to us and then create certain bills and laws that can go into law to help prevent this from happening again in Austin and in Washington, D.C. So in Washington, D.C., there's about 65 family members and community supporters that are going to go on Tuesday and Wednesday to a silent march and a vigil sponsored by March 4th, the community out of Highland Park. And when I say community out of Highland Park, as you all know, something happened there where there was people that were also shot in a mass shooting there, right? So they've organized and they're helping the Uvalde families to travel to Washington, D.C. to hopefully change the minds of some of these senators so we can get them to call a vote and hopefully ban assault weapons. We can call it a ban, a freeze, anything at all, right? Because if you don't do anything, it's gonna happen again. So we know that here in the state of Texas, it's very difficult to get them to listen to us as we tried. And the families that have met, like we have, and I'm sure you have met with Governor Abbott. And in Jasmine's words last night, she told me, she goes, this is Jasmine, is Jackie's sister. She said, they listen to us, but they're not hearing us. And for a 17-year-old to say, but we're not gonna give up. We're gonna keep fighting for this. And we often think, why were we in the sidelines after 4 or 5 different mass shootings? You know, we really didn't think that it would ever happen in Uvalde, but as we know now, it can happen anywhere. It can happen to any family. So when you see us in Washington, D.C. and the families, when you see us in Austin, you know, and everybody is working together for one common thing, is to try to end mass shootings. You know, we'll do everything that we can, but I think I've said enough to where, you know, I hope.
Let me ask if you'll take a few questions from people. Thanks for being here.